Well, as you rightly pointed out, this is of high symbolic value, and she's not the only one to show solidarity with the ongoing uprising in Iran against the entire regime. So this shows, on one hand, the immense courage of especially Iranian women in confronting the system and making their voices heard. But also, on the other hand, it shows the brutality of the state's response. So it shows both sides, basically.
Yeah. So do you not think Tehran would be concerned that she doesn't become some sort of a political figure and galvanize the protest movement even further if she is jailed, for example?
Listen, this is what we're witnessing. What we're witnessing in Iran today is the broadest social base of any uprising in the history of the Islamic Republic. This is truly a revolutionary process ongoing. We see the involvement of a variety of social groups. At the forefront are surely the women and the young generation, but also you see also a lot of sports stars. For instance, Ali Karimi, who is a famous football star out of Dubai, has been showing immense solidarity with the people of Iran. So this is across the board in all walks of life across Iranian society.
Yeah, and interesting was the energy sector workers, and of course Iran is so dependent on oil, getting involved. How significant was that in your mind?
This is very significant since we are talking what I call about a revolutionary process, and obviously the workers' movement and workers' involvement in strikes in strategic sectors of the economy, which has been the case with the workers that you mentioned in the petrochemical industry. But today also we are witnessing strikes and protests at Haftape, which is a large agro business conglomerate in the south, also in the southern part of the country. So we see the increasing involvement of the working class, and the working class has, played a pivotal role in deposing the Shah in 1979 when staging protests and strikes in the oil industry.
So let's talk about this as a revolutionary moment. How can it evolve? How can it have victory in a way, given the brutality of the regime?
That's a very good question, and I think we have to take into account three factors. One is pressure from below, and we are seeing it. We have the widest social base, and it is also, sustained, also with elements of the working class joining. Second, we're going to see how far there are going to be rifts at the top, and there are some, a few signs of perhaps rifts within the security apparatus, but we have to observe that. And thirdly, great power politics also plays an important role here, how especially Western governments gonna accompany this process, if they're gonna accompany it positively or negatively, how their policies will affect the regime and civil society. So those are three factors to bear in mind.
Yeah. In the past, though, and we're seeing it again, further sanctions being imposed on Iran, sanctions haven't necessarily caused a rethinking in terms of how they go forward with this government.
Well, sanctions are a very complex issue. It is true that there are important sanctions already in place against Iran when it comes to the energy sector and the financial and banking system. But the sanctions that we've seen so far during the present uprising, especially from European governments, have been so far disappointing and quite thin. Whereas, for instance, the Canadian government has imposed sanctions on 10,000 members of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. So I think there is still some room from Western countries to increase the economic and political pressure upon Tehran. And this is quite important if we want to see even some course corrections in their behavior in terms of repression. Yeah. But the situation is clear. This is a revolutionary process ongoing.
In any revolutionary process, and we saw this with the Arab Spring, you need a viable alternative. Is there the sense that there is one?
Well, I mean, first of all, we see, decentralized nature of the uprising, which also makes it harder for the security forces to crack down on them. So this is perhaps one advantage. Secondly, we do not have to forget that we have personalities also inside Iran deriving from the components of Iranian civil society, that is the women's, students, and workers movement, who are respected society-wide. So, we have to keep our distances from orthodox thinking about leadership as if there was one person at the top. I think since you talked about the Arab Spring, the Sudanese model may be good here because the Sudanese were successful at the very beginning because they had an organized underground civil society organization composed of feminists and different professional groups.
Very fascinating. Good to have you on and get your perspective. Thanks so much.
Thank you.